Welcome, everyone. Today we are beginning our exploration of cloud administration with a focus on identity, specifically, the skills covered in Module AZ-104T00A, which is all about administering identities within Azure. This might sound technical, but really it's about who can access what resources and how we make that happen securely. Think of it like managing keys to different rooms in a building. You want to give the right people access to the right rooms without letting anyone unauthorized wander around. Topic: Identity basics. At its core, identity management is all about verifying who someone is before granting them permissions within our cloud environment. This involves things like creating user accounts, managing passwords, and controlling what services each person can use. It's fundamentally important because without robust identity controls, we risk data breaches or accidental changes to critical systems. For instance, imagine a marketing team member accidentally deleting production website files. Proper identity management helps prevent that by limiting their access to only the necessary resources. Topic: Azure Active Directory. Azure Active Directory is Microsoft's cloud-based identity and access management service. It's where we handle all of these user accounts, groups, and permissions. It isn't just for Azure, either. Many organizations now use Azure AD to manage identities for on-premises applications as well, creating a single place to control access across their entire IT landscape. This creates efficiency and consistency in how users are onboarded and offboarded, and greatly simplifies security policies. Topic: Multi-factor authentication. A crucial component of administering identity is multi-factor authentication, often called MFA. Instead of just relying on a password, MFA requires an additional form of verification like a code sent to your phone or fingerprint scan. This adds a critical layer of security because even if someone steals a password, they still need that second factor to gain access. Think about your own online banking. Most banks require something beyond just your password now, and it's for good reason. MFA dramatically reduces the risk of unauthorized logins. Welcome. Today's module focuses on securing access to cloud resources, specifically within the Microsoft Azure environment. We are going to build a foundational understanding of identity management using Microsoft Entra ID, and then put that knowledge into practice. Think of it like building the security team for your digital assets. You need to know who is allowed in, what they can access, and how to manage those permissions effectively. This module will give you hands-on experience with this core concept through a practical lab exercise. Topic: Microsoft Entra ID configuration. Let's talk about configuring Microsoft Entra Identity, often called simply Entra ID. Think of it as the gatekeeper to all your cloud resources and applications. It's how you manage who can access what. This is a crucial step in securing your environment because without proper identity management, even the most robust infrastructure is vulnerable. Entra ID isn't just about usernames and passwords. It encompasses multi-factor authentication, conditional access policies, and role-based permissions. For instance, imagine your company uses Microsoft 365. Entra ID handles all the user accounts, allowing employees to log in with a single set of credentials while enforcing security measures like requiring a code sent to their phone. Setting up Entra ID properly ensures that only authorized personnel have access and that data remains protected. It's the foundation for trust in a cloud environment. We'll be diving into how we actually configure this, but understanding why is really important first. Let's begin by outlining what we'll cover in this module regarding Microsoft Entra ID, formerly known as Azure Active Directory. Think of this as a roadmap for understanding how to manage access and identities within the cloud, a critical piece of any modern IT infrastructure. We'll explore its advantages, core ideas, and how it differs from traditional systems you might already be familiar with. Ultimately, we want to equip you with the ability to select the right Entra ID plan for your needs and implement essential features like self-service password reset, all while understanding the broader scope of Azure identity governance. This will involve approximately 20 to 25% of your focus during this phase. Topic: Microsoft Entra ID benefits and features. First, we'll describe the benefits and features of Microsoft Entra ID. At its heart, Entra ID is an identity and access management service. It controls who can access what resources. Imagine a building with many doors. Entra ID is like the security system controlling who gets a keycard to which rooms. This includes single sign-on capabilities for cloud applications, multi-factor authentication to bolster security, and conditional access policies based on location or device type. Topic: Microsoft Entra ID concepts. Next up are core concepts within Microsoft Entra ID. We delve into the fundamental building blocks like tenants, users, groups, and applications. A tenant is essentially your organization's dedicated instance of Entra ID, your private space within the cloud. Users represent individuals needing access, groups organize those users for streamlined permission management, and applications are the services they need to utilize. Understanding these concepts provides a solid foundation for everything else. Topic: Compare Microsoft Entra ID to Active Directory Domain Services. Now we'll compare it with Active Directory Domain Services. AZ is an on-premises system. It lives within your company's data center, whereas Entra ID is cloud-based. Think of ADDS as a traditional filing cabinet you manage yourself versus Entra ID being a secure digital vault managed by Microsoft. While they both solve similar problems, identity management, the deployment model and capabilities differ significantly. Topic: Select Microsoft Entra ID plans and pricing. Will then look at selecting the right Microsoft Entra ID plan and pricing. Microsoft offers various tiers, each providing different features and levels of support. It's like choosing a car. A basic model meets essential needs while premium options offer advanced functionality. We'll cover free, basic, premium P1, and premium P2 to help you determine the best fit for your budget and requirements. Topic: Configure device identities, optional. Next, we'll discuss how to configure device identities. This is optional but increasingly important. This feature lets you manage devices accessing your resources, ensuring they meet security standards. Imagine registering all company laptops with Entra ID so only authorized devices can connect to sensitive data, a critical layer of protection. Topic: Implement self-service password reset. Then we'll implement self-service password reset. This allows users to regain access without IT intervention, saving time and reducing support tickets. It's like having a digital key maker for your employees, empowering them to solve common issues independently. A well-configured SSPR system greatly improves user experience. Topic: Learning recap. Finally, we'll have a learning recap focusing on managing Azure identities and governance, specifically Microsoft Entra ID users and groups, as well as license management and self-service password reset configuration. This part ties everything together to ensure you can effectively administer access within your cloud environment. Hello everyone. Today we are going to discuss Microsoft Entra ID, a really important component of modern cloud security and access management. Think of it as the gatekeeper for all your digital resources within Azure, but with capabilities extending far beyond just that. It's fundamentally a cloud-based suite designed to securely manage who can get into what, protecting both your users and data. Topic: Entra ID core benefits. Microsoft Entra ID provides a comprehensive set of identity management features. Let's break those down. The core is application management. This means controlling access to the various software applications your organization uses. Then there's authentication, which verifies who someone is before granting access. This goes beyond simple passwords with things like multi-factor authentication. We also have device management, allowing you to enforce security policies on the devices accessing your resources, and finally hybrid identity, seamlessly connecting your on-premises Active Directory infrastructure with the cloud. Topic: Entra ID, visual representation. Looking at this diagram, we see a transition from traditional Windows Server Active Directory to Microsoft Entra ID. You notice on-premises apps connected via local authentication and Windows Server Active Directory using protocols like Kerberos and NTLM. These represent your existing infrastructure. As you move towards the right, we see Microsoft Entra ID supporting modern standards such as SAML, OAuth, OpenID Connect, and WS Federation for cloud applications and Azure resources. This illustrates how Entra ID bridges that gap between legacy systems and a fully cloud-based environment. It's about flexibility and control in an increasingly diverse IT landscape. So, it doesn't force you to completely overhaul your existing setup, but allows you to gradually adopt more secure cloud practices. To recap, Entra ID offers a unified platform for managing identities, improving security posture, and simplifying access across applications, devices, and environments. It's truly the foundation for a zero-trust approach in today's digital world. Let's begin by building a foundational understanding of Microsoft Entra ID, which is central to managing access in the Microsoft Cloud. We'll break down some key concepts that define how identities are represented and controlled within this system. Topic: Identity versus account. First, let's distinguish between an identity and an account. Think of an identity as simply who something is, a user, a device, or even an application. It's the object that needs to be verified. An account, on the other hand, is that identity with specific data attached, like username, password, security questions, or contact details. Imagine your driver's license. The identity is you, and the account information is everything on the card itself. Microsoft Entra ID accounts are specifically those identities created directly within Entra ID or through other Microsoft services like Office 365. Now, let's consider how organizations fit into this picture. Topic: Tenants and directories. A tenant, also often called a directory, is essentially your organization's dedicated space within Microsoft Entra ID. When you sign up for a Microsoft Cloud service like Azure, a tenant is automatically provisioned for you. It's a logically isolated environment, representing everything specific to your company. It's important to know that you can have multiple tenants if needed, perhaps one for development and another for production environments, and the terms tenant and directory are typically used interchangeably. Microsoft Entra ID itself is the underlying service providing all of this identity management, so it's helpful to keep that distinction in mind. Finally, topic: Azure subscriptions. Let's quickly touch on the Azure subscription. This isn't directly related to who someone is, but rather how you pay for access to those cloud resources. Your Azure subscription is simply the billing mechanism that allows your organization to use services like virtual machines or storage in Azure. It's how Microsoft gets compensated for providing these capabilities. So, while identity management is handled by Entra ID, your usage costs are tracked through the Azure subscription. Let's begin by comparing Microsoft Entra ID to the older Active Directory domain services. Think of both as gatekeepers, systems that verify who you are when you try to access resources, but they operate in fundamentally different ways. Microsoft Entra ID is designed as primarily an identity solution, meaning it's co-managing and confirming digital identities, whereas Active Directory historically handled broader network management tasks alongside identity. This distinction is important because it influences how each system communicates and integrates with other applications. Topic: Communication methods. Now, let's talk about how Entra ID verifies those identities. It doesn't rely on the traditional networking protocols that Active Directory used. Instead, it queries information using something called a REST API over HTTP and HTTPS. Imagine ordering food online. You send a request, the query, through a standard web connection, the HTTP/HTTPS, and the restaurant responds with your order details. This makes Entra ID very flexible and accessible from anywhere with an internet connection. Topic: Authentication protocols. Building on that flexibility, Microsoft Entra ID uses several common protocols like SAML, WS Federation, and OpenID Connect for authentication. That's the process of proving who you are. These are essentially standardized languages applications used to talk about identity. OAuth is used for authorization, which decides what a user can access once they are authenticated. Think of it like this. SAML might log into an application using your work email, while OpenID Connect could allow you to sign in with a Google account. Topic: Federation and third-party integration. Another key strength is Entra ID's ability to include federation services, which means it can trust identities from other sources like third-party providers, and many of those are available, such as Facebook or even your company's existing identity systems. This is incredibly valuable for organizations that want a single sign-on experience across multiple applications and platforms. It simplifies things for users and enhances security by centralizing identity management. Topic: Structure and management. Finally, let's look at how Entra ID organizes its users. Unlike Active Directory, which uses a hierarchical structure with organizational units, OUs, to group users and group policy objects, GPOs, to manage settings, Microsoft Entra ID creates users and groups in a flat structure, basically one big list. This simplifies administration but requires different approaches for managing complex policies. You can directly translate your existing Active Directory GPOs into Entra ID. Alright, let's dive into Microsoft Entra plans and pricing. This table lays out the features available at different subscription levels: free, premium P1, premium P2, and governance, so you can choose what best fits your organization's needs. Topic: Single sign-on. First up, we have single sign-on, or SSO, which is included in all plans. Think of it like a hotel key card. Once you check in, one card gets you access to your room, the gym, and maybe even the restaurant. SSO lets users log in once and access multiple applications without re-entering their credentials each time. It's about convenience and security because it reduces password fatigue. Topic: Authentication methods. Moving down, we see cloud and federated authentication also available across all tiers. This refers to how you verify a user's identity. Cloud authentication means Microsoft handles the verification, while federated uses your existing on-premises systems like Active Directory. Having both options gives flexibility. Maybe some users are entirely cloud-based, others need integration with older infrastructure. Topic: Advanced features and management. Now let's look at features that unlock more power and control. Advanced group management is in the P1 tier and above, enabling things like dynamic groups based on user attributes. This simplifies administration significantly. Self-service account management portal, also starting with P1, empowers users to reset passwords and update profiles without IT intervention. It's about putting control in the hands of the end user. Topic: Security enhancement. Multi-factor authentication, or MFA, is a critical security feature that adds an extra layer of protection beyond just a password. Think of it like adding a second lock to your door. It's included in all plans, which is fantastic and highly recommended. Conditional access lets you define rules for accessing resources based on location, device, and other factors. This becomes very powerful when combined with risk-based conditional access found in P2. Topic: Automation and governance. Finally, the P2 tier and governance plan offer automation through features like automated user and group provisioning to apps. This means automatically creating or disabling accounts as people join or leave your organization. Privileged Identity Management, or PIM, is also a key feature of these plans. It allows you to grant just-in-time access to sensitive resources with elevated permissions, which drastically reduces risk. Governance provides advanced capabilities for managing identities and access on a larger scale. Let's talk about empowering your users with self-service password reset, a really important feature for both security and convenience. It allows people to regain access to their accounts without needing a help desk ticket, which frees up valuable IT resources. We are going to walk through the key steps of setting this up in Azure Active Directory, focusing on control and flexibility. Topic: Defining user eligibility. First, we need to determine who can actually use self-service password reset. Think of it like deciding who gets a key to the building. You wouldn't give everyone a key, right? You'd probably limit access based on role or department. In Azure, you have granular control to specify which users or groups are permitted to utilize this function. For example, maybe only full-time employees can use it, while contractors cannot. This is about balancing usability with security, ensuring the right people have self-service options without opening up unnecessary risks. Now that we've established who can reset their passwords, let's move on to how they do it. Topic: Authentication methods. Choosing the number of authentication methods required and which ones are available. This is about building layers of security, like a multi-log system for your account. You might require 2 factors, something they know, a password, and something they have, a phone or email, before allowing a reset. Look at this configuration panel on the right side of the screen. You can see options to enable mobile app notifications, mobile phone verification via text message, or security questions. The more methods available, the easier it is for users to recover their accounts, but also the more complex your setup becomes. Finally, topic: Mandatory registration. You have the option to require users to register for SSPR in advance, and this process actually looks very similar to setting up multi-factor authentication. Think of pre-registration as proactively preparing for a potential lockout situation. It's like adding emergency contacts to your phone so you're ready if something happens. By requiring registration, you ensure that users have already verified their recovery options before they need them, reducing friction during a stressful password reset event. It's about shifting from reactive support to proactive security. Let's recap what we've covered in configuring Microsoft Entra ID, formerly known as Azure Active Directory. This section is designed to solidify your understanding and prepare you for practical application. We'll be reviewing knowledge checks, supplemental materials, and hands-on exercises. It's about making sure everyone can access the tools they need securely without constant IT intervention. Topic: Self-service password reset. First up is allowing users to reset their passwords with Azure Active Directory Self-Service Password Reset, which we denote as SSPR. Imagine a scenario where an employee forgets their login. Instead of waiting for help desk support, they can use a guided process to regain access independently. This boosts productivity and reduces the burden on IT teams because it empowers users to handle common issues themselves. The label sandbox indicates there's a dedicated environment available for you to practice this feature without affecting live systems. Now let's move on to managing device identity with Azure AD Join and Enterprise State Roaming. Topic: Device identity management. Think of your laptop, phone, or tablet. These are all devices that need access to company resources. Azure AD Join allows these devices to become members of the organization's directory, enabling centralized management and security policies. Enterprise State Roaming takes it a step further by synchronizing user settings and files across multiple devices automatically. This ensures a consistent experience for users no matter which device they are using, a seamless transition from their office computer to their home laptop, for example. Finally, we'll address implementing and managing hybrid identity. Topic: Hybrid identity. Many organizations don't move everything to the cloud all at once. This involves connecting your on-premises Active Directory with Azure AD, allowing you to leverage the benefits of both environments. Essentially, it's a bridge between your existing infrastructure and the cloud, a common strategy for large enterprises during their digital transformation journey. Again, we have a sandbox available so you can experiment with setting up this hybrid connection safely. Topic: User and group account configuration. Now, let's talk about configuring user and group accounts within your cloud environment. This is fundamental to security and access control. It's all about determining who can do what. Think of it like the keycard system for a building. You wouldn't give everyone master keys, right? You grant specific people access to specific areas based on their roles and responsibilities, and that's precisely what we do here. You create individual user accounts for each person needing access, then organize those users into groups, like departments or project teams, to simplify permission management. For example, you might have a marketing team group with access to shared folders and applications used by the marketing department, instead of managing permissions for each marketer individually. This makes things much more efficient and less prone to errors. Finally, properly configured accounts ensure compliance with security policies and prevent unauthorized access to sensitive data, a critical aspect of any cloud implementation. Let's begin by outlining what we'll cover in this module regarding managing identities within Azure, specifically focusing on users and groups. Think of it like organizing a team. You need to create individual accounts for each person and ways to group them together based on their roles or projects. This ensures the right people have access to the correct resources, which is fundamental for security and efficiency in any cloud environment. We're dedicating about 20 to 25% of our time to this area because effective identity management forms a critical base for everything else we do with Azure. Topic: Create user accounts. Creating user accounts is the very first step, representing establishing individual identities within your Azure environment. It's analogous to giving each employee an email address and password, a unique way they can log in and access company systems. We'll see how this process works practically through the portal, ensuring you understand how to define basic properties like usernames and roles. Now, moving on from creation. Topic: Manage user accounts. Managing those accounts becomes essential. This means updating information, resetting passwords, or even disabling an account when someone leaves the organization. It's about maintaining a clean and secure identity landscape. Just as you would update employee contact details in HR, we'll learn to modify user properties within Azure to keep things accurate and relevant. Next up is topic: Create bulk accounts. Optional. Sometimes, you need to onboard many users at once. Imagine hiring a whole new department. That's where bulk account creation comes in handy, allowing you to upload information from a spreadsheet instead of manually creating each user individually. This saves considerable time and reduces the potential for errors when dealing with large teams. Following that, topic: Create group accounts is important because organizing users into groups simplifies permission management significantly. Think of it like forming project teams. Rather than assigning permissions to individuals, you assign them to the group. It's a powerful way to streamline administration and ensure consistency across your organization. And as we build our infrastructure, topic: Assign licenses to users and groups. Extra topic is a necessary step for enabling specific services or features within Azure. A license essentially grants access to particular tools, similar to purchasing software subscriptions for each employee. We'll touch upon this briefly, acknowledging its importance without diving too deeply at this stage. Topic: Create administrative units. Optional. These are containers that help you organize users and groups logically, often based on geography or department. They're like creating separate folders within a larger directory to improve organization, a helpful feature for large organizations with complex structures. Finally, we'll have a topic: Demonstration. Users and groups, where we walk through the actual process of creating and managing users and groups in Azure. This hands-on experience will solidify your understanding of the concept we've discussed, giving you practical skills to apply immediately. And finally, we wrap up with a topic: Summary and resources section, providing key takeaways and links for further learning. Topic: Foundational identity. Let's begin with something absolutely essential to any cloud environment, or frankly, any digital system: user accounts. Every single person who needs access to your resources in Azure must have one of these. Think of it like a keycard to a building. You can't get inside without it, and different cards give access to different areas. The account itself isn't just a name and password though, it's the fundamental tool for both authentication and authorization. Authentication is simply verifying who someone is, confirming they are who they say they are. Authorization then determines what that person is allowed to do once verified, like accessing specific data or applications. Looking at this display from the Azure portal, you can see a list of users currently set up, their names and email addresses, and even details about whether they are members of your organization or guests with limited access. Topic: Account properties. And it doesn't stop there. Each user account has additional properties beyond just the basics. These can include things like job title, department, phone number, location, or other information relevant to your organization and security policies. For example, you might want to categorize users by their team to easily manage permissions later on. We see columns for user type and directory synced here. These are examples of properties that help us understand the account's role and how it integrates with other systems. These details aren't just nice to haves, they're critical for building a secure and manageable cloud infrastructure. Let's discuss managing user accounts within your Azure environment. It's a fundamental aspect of security and access control, so understanding the nuances here is really important. We look at permissions, what information is required, how to handle accidental deletions, and keeping track of who does what. Topic: Permissions for user management. First, you'll notice it states that managing users requires either global administrator or user administrator privileges. Think of these roles like keys to different levels of a building. Global admin has the master key to everything, while user admin can manage people but not necessarily the underlying infrastructure. This separation is crucial because you don't want everyone having complete control over your system. For example, someone in HR might need to create and disable accounts, so they'd be granted user administrator rights, avoiding unnecessary risk. Topic: Optional user profile information. Next, we see that the user profile, things like a picture, job title, or contact information, is optional. This is about balancing security with usability. While adding this info can make things more personable and help people identify each other, it isn't required for basic functionality. It's similar to filling out extra fields on a form. You may choose to provide them for convenience, but the core operation still works without it. Topic: User deletion and recovery. Then there's the ability to restore deleted users for 30 days. This is a fantastic safeguard against accidental removals. Imagine someone unintentionally deletes an account. Instead of a complex recovery process, you have a month to reinstate it. It's like having an undo button for user management, adding a layer of protection and reducing potential downtime. Topic: Sign-in and audit logs. Finally, the availability of sign-in and audit log information is critical for security monitoring. These logs record who accessed what resources and when. It's like having a security camera system. It allows you to investigate suspicious activity, demonstrate compliance with regulations, or simply understand how your systems are being used. This data helps identify potential breaches or policy violations. Let's talk about how we organize people and devices within a cloud environment, specifically focusing on Azure Active Directory groups. You can think of these groups like folders on your computer. They help you manage permissions and access more efficiently. Instead of giving each person or device individual rights, you assign them to a group, simplifying administration significantly. We look at the different types available and how users get into those groups. Topic: Group types. First, we have two primary kinds of groups: security groups and Microsoft 365 groups. Security groups are really geared towards controlling access to resources. Think of them as a way to say anyone in this group can read this file, or only members of this group can start a virtual machine. Microsoft 365 groups, on the other hand, focus more on collaboration. They provide shared mailboxes, calendars, and document storage. Imagine setting up a project team. A Microsoft 365 group makes that really easy. You'll often see this used for departments like marketing or finance where teamwork is essential. Topic: Assignment types. Now let's consider how people actually become members of those groups, and this is where assignment types come into play. We have assigned, dynamic user, and dynamic device, and it's important to note that dynamic device only applies to security groups. Assigned means a person or administrator manually adds someone to the group. It's very direct control. With dynamic user, Azure automatically adds or removes users based on attributes like department or job title. For instance, all employees in the sales department are added to a specific sales access group. Finally, dynamic device does something similar but with devices. adding machines to groups based on things like operating system location, and again this only works within security groups. Let's talk about how we give people access to the powerful tools within Azure. Think of Azure as a huge software suite, like Microsoft Office but far more extensive. Many core services are available without any cost, which is fantastic. You can start building and exploring right away. Crucially, Microsoft Entra ID, the identity management service, also comes included for free. This is how you manage who can use those services. Topic: Azure licensing tiers. However, to unlock more advanced features or access specialized tools like Premium Analytics, you need a paid license, either P1 or P2. These licenses essentially give you keys to different parts of the Azure kingdom. Additional services, such as the familiar Office 365 suite, are also independently paid cloud offerings, and require their own licensing separate from core Azure. You don't get what just because you have access to virtual machines in Azure, they are distinct. Now, let's focus on how these licenses actually work in practice. Microsoft requires a license for every service a user needs. You can't simply have one blanket license that opens everything. Each individual user or group needing access will require its own paid license. This is important for tracking usage and ensuring compliance. Topic: License administration. Fortunately, managing these licenses isn't done manually. Administrators like yourselves use either the management portals, graphical interfaces within Azure, or PowerShell cmlets, which are text-based commands, to handle everything. You can view available license plans and their details to understand what each one provides, set a usage location for regional compliance, assign licenses to users or groups, change license plans as needs evolve, and even remove licenses when someone no longer requires access. It's all about control and flexibility. Let's dive into managing users and groups within your Azure environment, as this is fundamental to controlling access and security. We are going to walk through a practical demonstration covering license details, user accounts, and group structures. Think of it like organizing the keys to your building. You need to know who has which key and what doors they can open, and that's precisely what we do here with digital identities. Topic: Review license and domain information. First, understanding license and domain information is vital. Licenses determine what services users have access to. For example, a business basic license allows access to email and online office apps, while a higher tier might include more advanced features like data analytics tools. Your domain, typically your company name, acts as the base address for all user accounts. It's how you identify who belongs to your organization within Azure's broader system. It is important because it sets the foundation for authentication and authorization. Now let's move on to exploring individual user accounts. Topic: Explore user accounts. These are the unique identities that represent people accessing your resources, like virtual machines or databases. We look at how to create new users, assign them roles, and manage their passwords. Imagine each user account as an employee badge. It verifies who they are and what permissions they have within the system. This control is essential for maintaining security and compliance. Finally, we're going to examine group accounts. Topic: Explore group accounts. Groups simplify management by letting you assign permissions to a collection of users at once instead of individually. If you need to give 10 people access to a specific folder, adding them to a group is far more efficient than updating each account separately. Think of groups as teams. You manage the team's permissions and all members inherit those rights. This streamlines administration and reduces errors. Let's take a moment to solidify what we've just covered regarding user and group accounts within the Azure environment. This recap focuses on practical application, specifically configuring those accounts. It's about understanding how to bring people into your cloud workspace and organize them effectively. Topic: Creating users and groups. First up is creating Azure users and groups in Azure Active Directory, and importantly, we did this within a sandbox environment. Think of Azure Active Directory as the central directory for all identities. It's like an employee ID system for your cloud resources. The sandbox part means you were able to experiment without impacting anything real, giving you safe space to learn through hands-on practice. This is vital because creating users and groups incorrectly can cause access problems or security vulnerabilities, so practicing in a controlled setting is key. Topic: Managing users and groups. Next, we learned how to manage those users and groups once they're created. This isn't just about adding people. It's about controlling what they can do, assigning permissions, resetting passwords, adding or removing access as roles change. Imagine you have a team working on a sensitive project. Managing their group membership lets you quickly grant them the necessary tools and revoke access when they are finished, keeping everything secure. It's like having a master key system for your digital infrastructure. Finally, at the bottom of this section we see additional study materials and knowledge checks to reinforce these concepts. Topic: Introduction to Lab 01. This lab focuses on managing identities within Microsoft Entra ID, formerly known as Azure Active Directory. Think of it like the front door and security guard for all your cloud resources. It controls who can get in and what they are allowed to do. We will be hands-on, creating users, assigning roles, and understanding how these identities connect to applications and data, which is crucial for secure access control. This initial lab lays a vital foundation for everything else we'll cover regarding cloud security and governance. It's about establishing trust in a zero-trust world. Topic: Why Microsoft Entra ID matters. Microsoft Entra ID isn't just about usernames and passwords. It's a comprehensive identity and access management system. Imagine your company has several applications, email, file storage, CRM software, each needing its own login. Entra ID lets you centralize those logins with single sign-on, improving user experience and security. Plus, it offers features like multi-factor authentication to add an extra layer of protection against unauthorized access, which is increasingly important given the current threat landscape. Ultimately, it streamlines how people access resources while keeping things secure. Let's begin our exploration of managing identities within Microsoft Entra ID, formerly known as Azure Active Directory. This lab focuses on enabling Contoso users to securely access resources. We are going to walk through a series of tasks designed to give you practical experience with core identity management capabilities. The first thing we need to do is get those users and the groups they belong to set up within Entra ID, essentially creating their digital presence and organizational structure. Think of it like onboarding new employees. You wouldn't just wander into a building without an ID badge or knowing which team they're on. Topic: User provisioning. Provisioning means creating those user accounts and group accounts within the system, making sure each individual has a unique identity and is assigned to the appropriate teams or departments. This process isn't just about adding names. It involves setting initial properties like email addresses and passwords, which are critical for security and access control. For example, you might create a marketing team group in Entra ID and then add several user accounts to that group. Next up, we'll tackle automatic group membership updates based on job titles. Topic: Dynamic group membership. Imagine Contoso hires a new sales manager. Manually updating their group memberships every time someone changes roles is tedious and error-prone. We'll automate this using Entra ID's dynamic membership feature, which means groups are populated automatically as users change their attributes like their job title in the HR system. This ensures that people always have the right access based on what they do. Finally, we want a safe space to experiment without impacting Contoso's live environment, so we'll create a test tenant. Topic: Azure Tenants. A tenant is like your own isolated instance of Microsoft Azure. It's a dedicated workspace for you to build and manage resources. We will then grant limited permissions to a test user within that tenant, allowing you to practice with Entra ID features without risk. This gives us a sandbox environment where we can learn by doing. Now, let's look at the objectives, which lay out the steps we'll follow in this lab. Creating and configuring users, setting up dynamic groups, building our test tenant, and managing guest access. Let's walk through the users involved in this lab environment, which helps illustrate how permissions and access are managed across different tenants. We see a visual representation of user roles within Azure Active Directory, specifically focusing on two tenant scenarios: the default tenant and a new Contoso Lab tenant. This isn't just about creating accounts. It's about understanding who has access to what, which is fundamental to security best practices. Topic: User roles in tenants. First, look at the default tenant block. This represents the initial Azure environment you often start with. Within that, we have two groups: IT Cloud Administrators and IT System Administrators. Both are assigned a dynamic user membership type, which means their access is granted based on rules. For example, anyone in the IT department automatically becomes a cloud administrator. Think of it like an email distribution list. When someone joins the team, they are added to the list and get relevant permissions without manual intervention. We can see two specific users listed under these groups: AZ-104-01A Aduza 1 and AZ-104-01A Aduza 2, each with a defined role, user administrator or system administrator, and belonging to the IT department. Topic: Assigned versus dynamic membership. Moving down, we encounter IT lab administrators with an assigned membership type. This is different from dynamic. Someone has to manually add users here. It's like a specific club where you need an invitation. You don't automatically get in just by being part of a larger organization. We see AZ-104-01B, Aduza 1 under this group, and they are assigned the lab administrator job title within IT. Topic: Guest user access. Now, let's consider task 4, guest user. This user, also AZ-104-01B, Aduza 1, is designated as a guest. Guests have limited access and are typically used for collaboration with external partners or stakeholders. Imagine inviting an outside consultant to view specific reports. They wouldn't get full administrative rights but could see what's necessary for their task. Topic: New tenant scenario. Finally, we have the new tenant, Contoso Lab. This shows how you can create separate environments and manage users independently. The user AZ-104-01B, Aduza 1, is again present here as a cloud user with the role of system administrator within the IT department, highlighting that a single person can hold different roles across multiple tenants depending on their responsibilities. This entire diagram emphasizes the concept of least privilege and granular control, ensuring users only have access to what they absolutely need. Topic: Presentation conclusion. Well, we've reached the end of our discussion. This isn't a full stop, though. It's more like a comma in a longer sentence about cloud security. We covered quite a bit regarding shared responsibility and how that looks across different service models like infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. Remember, understanding where you are responsible for security versus what Microsoft handles is crucial. Think of it like renting an apartment. You own your belongings inside, but the landlord maintains the building structure. We've explored that concept in detail through those matrices, highlighting data protection, application security, operating system management, and more. Hopefully, this gives you a solid foundation for navigating cloud security considerations.